recording this as of the 1st of October, and it's just the season, you know. I love autumn and winter, and I can just feel it. Welcome back to Witchin' with Faith. We might want to workshop that title. I don't know how I feel about that title. If you have a better title for this, please let me know. I would love a different one. I feel like Witchin' with Faith, it's okay. It's okay. Maybe we could aim for better though. Welcome back to Witchin' with Faith, and in this episode, I would just like to talk about how to choose correspondence or components for the workings that you're doing. There is a wide world out there of just everything in life that can have some sort of magical or spiritual property, and so choosing from almost everything it's a little overwhelming, especially for people like me, and like decisions are hard, you know? So I think there are some ways that you can narrow that down to make it easier to choose some correspondences that you might want to work with. Sometimes I like to think of it like having a capsule wardrobe, you know? Like you have go-tos, and you might like dabble outside of those go-tos, but building a working relationship with your go-tos, with the list of things that you regularly use, you work with, you know, maybe you cultivate and grow yourself, working with them, working with the spirits of them or the energies of them, and just really knowing them. That's super powerful. And that's not to say you can't like dip outside of those things, but I do think that having like a nice narrowed down list is just going to be at a basic level a lot more easy and accessible, and again, like good for low energy, because so many of us are very busy people, as is the world's current state. There's just a lot going on, and we don't always have time to memorize what every tiny little mini thing in the world and all of its properties are, right? As always, we're making the craft work for us. So there are like 3 things that I think help narrow down that list. And I think the first thing is what is personal to you. What do you have significant connection with, you know? Maybe you had a really close relationship with like a grandparent, and they grew their own parsley. I have parsley on the brain because I'm growing parsley right now, and it's doing so well and I love it. It's called Percy in my head as well. It's Percy the parsley. It's quite playful. Anyway, maybe you have a grandparent that grew parsley, and so you always had fresh parsley around. Or maybe, you know, your aunt grew lavender. Or maybe right now you have a cat, and that cat drops whiskers, for example. Building up a little like apothecary, building up a capsule apothecary, or a capsule components of the things that hold significance to you means a couple of things. One, that those things might be readily available to you, which is fantastic. But 2, not only is it going to have the power of the correspondences that come with it, right? But it's going to have extra power because it means something to you. For example, I have the distinct privilege of existing with 3 beautiful guinea pigs. They are old men now, but they are my babies and I love them dearly. And guinea pigs have their own correspondences, as everything does. There's socialness, there's community, there's healing factors with them. They are from the Andes, and there's a lot of very interesting information regarding them from there. Additionally, because I have guinea pigs, I happen to have access to a lot of hay, because that's such a big portion of their diet. I have 2 different types of hay, and hay has benefits of prosperity and abundance. There's healing there too. It's also known for fertility and for pregnancy. And so I have access to unique things that other people may not have access to because of my personal situation. I have lots of hay in the house. I have the trimmings of my guinea pig's fur from when I groom them, and I can utilize those in ways that other people wouldn't have access to in the same way. I have built up a big relationship with my pigs. I love them so dearly, and I take care of them every day, and they have their own individual personalities as well. So on top of those correspondences, there's the individual pig. I even on my Twitch stream, I have a channel point redeem where you can get your daily guinea pig divination, and that's based on who these little guys are. They have such vibrant personalities and lives and interactions with each other. And so yes, there's the energy of the basic correspondences, the basic connections and the magical properties that may come along with guinea pigs or with hay or with lavender or cats or whatever it may be. But there's an extra layer there of what that can mean to you. And so pulling from what is personal to you can have a lot of power. On a similar note, the next one is locally sourcing your things. And this one is good practice most of the time. And I'm going to explain that, okay? Knowing what grows locally to you. You know, what herbs, what weeds, what trees, what wildlife, kind of rocks, what kind of water you have, all of that. What is your local kind of ecosystem? What can you pull from the area that you are from? There's going to be a history of the people where you're currently situated, the people that have practiced any kind of magic or spirituality or folk practice. There's going to be a history of people working with those things in this area. There is going to be a historical kind of working relationship with those things in the area that you're in. And so working with them yourself, finding out what their connections are, what their correspondences are, what are they good for, what are their magical properties, how would one work with them, how would one prepare them, you know, building that relationship might be a little bit easier if the energies or the spirit of those things have been used in that way historically well as well. For the most part, a little asterisk goes here, for the most part, those things are going to be quite abundant where you are, unless asterisk they are, you know, endangered or over harvested or, you know, mistreated. But for the most part, you're going to have an abundance of that around you. And so building that relationship and making those connections and harvesting and offering to those things is going to be easier for you. Now, at the start of this little local, I said for the most part as well there. This is obviously good and probably quite widespread advice in the witchcraft community to, you know, step outside and go find what's local to you and spend some time in the nature and in the sort of habitat that those things exist in. And for the most part, that's such good advice and people absolutely should. For a handful of us, that's not entirely possible for whatever reason, you know, be it chronic illness or some sort of disability, or like me, for example, you might be dealing with some kind of agoraphobia, and stepping outside really is not that simple. I know I plan on working on that. I can't wait to get outside. I can't wait for that. I can't wait to do that level of connection, but that's not possible for me at this point in time. That's okay. There can be ways around this kind of thing. If it does grow locally to you, you could always grow those plants yourself inside. Additionally, you can always ask a friend that you trust or a family member that you trust, if that is available to you, if you are out of the broom closet, to go and connect to those things on your behalf, to leave offerings on your behalf, to gather those things on your behalf, hopefully with the consent if you're working with it in that way. But working locally with the flora, with the fauna, with the general area and building those relationships there, working with the spirits of the land, of the water, of the sky, working with the energies that come with those things, that can be hugely beneficial and is something I think we should all strive to potentially do as much as we can. Again, depending on what your ability in that looks like. Which brings me to sort of the final way of choosing any correspondences for your regular go-to kind of capsule why can't I talk? Your capsule apothecary. Correspondence cupboard, your apothecary, right? And that is to just choose what is accessible and reliable. What do you have access to? What is available to you? And what is known to work in specific ways, right? Maybe you live in a very urban area, green spaces are few and far between, it's really hard to connect with a lot of any of the spirits of nature or any locally growing anything because it's very concrete where you live. That's so true for so many of us. Hop into the supermarket. What's available to you there? Can you build connection with any of those things? Can you see how those things feel? The spice section, the herb section, whatever you are working with in that regard, you can work with those things. And, you know, maybe going forward from that, maybe let's say you get a real feeling for basil, right? Or parsley, little Percy over there. Maybe you get a real feeling for that based on the experiences you've had with the dried herbs or any of that from the supermarket, right? Let's say then you want to take it further. Then you can grow your own plant if that's available to you, you know? And the best part about that is there is so much information out there in regards to so many of the day-to-day kind of herbs and spices that you will find in the supermarket. And that can be such a nice introduction into working with these things, into building those relationships. There's probably going to be so much more information on the uses of rosemary, the uses of salt, the uses of basil, of chives, of anything that you can find in the supermarket than there is going to be on, for example, the uses of my guinea pig's fur that I trim off every month, you know? There is a reliability there that can be so helpful for low energy folk, you know? So I think the best way to sort of build up correspondences that you regularly might work with, that you can build those relationships with, that you can really sort of get to know and understand and get a feel for those energies, get a chance to work with the spirits of those things if that's what you work with, if that's what you believe in. And that is what is personal to you, what is local to you, and what is accessible and reliable. Now there are a little disclaimer group, I will say, of things that maybe we shouldn't choose from, yes, and those are rare or endangered things. Like if something is really struggling out there in the world, maybe don't contribute to the over harvesting of something, or maybe don't contribute to the taking of from a natural environment, the taking the opportunity from that thing to thrive, right? Additionally, if something is part of a closed practice, there are definitely a bajillion other things that you could choose that's not that thing that will work just as well. Being respectful of the earth that we exist on and the people that we exist with should be just basic points of being a human, I feel, and let alone being a practitioner. I really wanted to make this video because I know I did a video on very basic components, and I sort of threw some correspondences out there just as a way to try and be helpful with things that you might already have, because I feel like, one, there's a lot of pressure to have every little herb and spice and tool and correspondence in the witchcraft spaces. There's a lot of pressure to consume, right? And it doesn't have to be that way. And more often than not, you can make do with things that you might just have in the house. And two, because it can be very overwhelming. There is just an infinite list, it feels, of different components and correspondences in the world, because everything does have an energy. That's what I believe anyway. So there's always correspondence, there's always components, there's always properties that can be found in almost everything across the world, and that's so overwhelming when you're looking to choose things to, you know, craft a spell with or to work with in a certain way. So I think if you're starting out maybe, or you get overwhelmed like me, building a little tried and tested go-to little cupboard of components of magical correspondences with specific properties that you know work for you, it's working really well for me, so maybe it can work really well for you as well. I would love to know how you choose the correspondences that you're working with. Are there certain things that you feel called to? Do you have personal connections with your correspondences? Are you looking at your local area and the local flora, the local fauna, the rocks, the energies that are around you? Is it more so that it's what's accessible and reliable to you? You know, is the supermarket more accessible to you than any kind of green space? I would love to know. So let me know in the comments, and let me know in the comments if you like the video or if there's anything else I could touch on. I'd love to know. Thank you so much for watching this or any of my videos. I appreciate it greatly. I hope you have a fantastic time zone. You stay fed, watered, rested, know that you are loved, because I love you, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.